Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is obviously refer to your worksheet to find out um, where that information is. So this one is from the data.gov website. You'll see there's a couple different options to get a file. You'll see that in this case, we have other with a shape file. That's probably the best one to use. So I'm going to go ahead and click download. Let's go to, I think I've downloaded it already. So I've already got it there. So let's make sure. You'll have to go through that process of unzipping it. Right, so you got that physio file. So I'm gonna now go to QGIS. I'm also going to do, so I've got that shape file, so I need to bring in that vector file. So I'm gonna click on this one, go to browse. I'll find that file, so that physio one. And again, I'm looking for that shape file. So. Oh, it's because it's underneath. Perfect. So you're going to get something looking like this. And you can already see that it looks very similar to that one that we looked at on the website. Oh no, I think I deleted it. Or I closed it at least. But anyways, so you can see that it has those province regions. It's a good way to figure out which one you're looking for. So if I click on this, I can start to get information, right? So if I click on these with that eye icon with the arrow, if I click on this, so I know this is the Great Basin. I can see right here, section, Great Basin, province, basin, and range. Like I said, for this process, you're really just focusing on the basin and range. If I click on this one below, you can see it's still considered within the basin and range. So you have Sonoran Desert. This one's also part of it. This is part of the Mexican Highland. This one's not part of it. So it's really just these three sections that make it up. Okay, so what you need to do now is start to actually classify this or separate that information just so it's easier in Illustrator or other modeling techniques. So I have that layer, it's all just one fill. I can change it from being all just one color to being categorized. So I'll click on this single symbol after I double click that layer. I'll choose categorized. And now you have the option of determining how are you going to categorize it. Depending on the type of file, they have all the different types of metadata or attributes. This one, I think it was province that determined it. So I'm going to select province. So once I do that, I then change, I can do a color map. Right now it's set to random colors. You can choose one of these. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to classify, and then you'll see all those actual different values. And then in order to actually change it, I'm going to hit apply, close it out, and there you go. Now you can see all those parts. It looks like there's some, I don't know if that information is true or not. Let's see. So yeah, this is actually part of the basin and range area as well. So I didn't include that, or I didn't select it earlier. Uh-oh. Come on. Okay, so there's that part. Looks like this is also considered part of it. Yeah, so make sure to include all those parts that are part of the basin and range. What's good about this with the classification process, I can go back to it. And if I wanted to, I could just find all those areas that aren't part of the basin and range area. So I can select all these, and I can even choose to delete. This part actually isn't deleting the physical data. It's just hiding it, so to speak. It's easier to do it this way just because in those other cases, there's so many different classifications that were odd that, oops, let's apply that, select out of it. So now you just have those regions selected. And obviously you can always change the colors. So I can click on that, change it from a simple fill. Maybe I don't want to fill at all. I can change it still from solid line, but then I can just change the color. Again, it doesn't really matter because you're probably going to make those changes in Illustrator, but you can start to see how it shows up. Something I would also want to include, so I have my height field, or not my height field, my shaded relief. I've got my boundary lines, which is good because then we can indicate which states are being affected by this. I've got the water bodies. It looks like I probably want to make sure that my lines are also on top of that. So it looks like, yeah, they are there. So again, this is what helps, like when you can start to draw on top of this aerial to determine which one of these valleys water is flowing through, where is it settling, and all that fun stuff, versus where it's just a landmass. So what's that, Bruno? Huh? So when it comes to the map itself, so let's go ahead and just clean some of this up so we can bring it into you might even want to include this height field. I'm not sure. It's kind of up to you. I would download it or at least run it just as another way to kind of classify your landforms, because you can see like here it's still kind of high versus when it starts to get into this yellow and pinkish, that means the elevation's lowering. So you can even start to think of your ridges and valleys at a higher elevation and then they start to kind of sink down. So this might help indicate like this is probably where the center of that all happened, and then it starts to kind of taper as it gets further away. So Las Vegas looks like it's almost at the edge of that one formation. It's kind of hard to see, but there's the red line right here, and that's where Vegas is, almost like right at that line. That's actually kind of scary. Well, what often happens between plate boundaries? We don't, right? We have in the past, like there was one a couple years ago. It wasn't huge. Like that's because these ones aren't transform boundaries where they're shifting side to side. These are just like pulling away. So that's why you don't have as much seismic activity. But we are right at the edge of a fault line, which is kind of interesting. Huh? Probably. I mean, let's see what happens if I look at this aerial satellite. Uh, I mean, who knows like how accurate that is? It could be. That's just a general. Again, this is looking at a pretty high scale. But yeah, Vegas is right snap dab in the middle. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. You can kind of see like this is where Lake Mead is forming right at that fault line too, for the most part. Like that's probably why water likes to flow there, is because it's right where that fissure is. as well as those areas. I mean, it's pretty much almost identical, which is interesting. Okay, so what you can do with this one is, like I said before, you can start to trace out, like, or at least highlight with some line work where these are occurring. And like I said, it's pretty easy, even with the aerial image. You'll see just in terms of how these are matching up. Just by looking at this, where do you think the smooth part is versus where the fissure, the crack is? Say that again. Is the which part? The smooth part, right? I can even see it with the shade relief. Like, here's all the jagged cracks, then it starts to kind of smooth out. So these areas that are really dark are where those rigid crack lines are. So that's really like, is this the right? So that green is here, and then that smooth part is like the tan. So even just looking at this aerial image, you can really start to identify where all those um, sharp edges of the ridges are versus the smoother parts. And when you really zoom out, it's immediate where you can tell where you have your marching caterpillars. Um, it's pretty cool. Like, you can, just as like a point of reference with the Spring Mountains. So right over here where Red Rock is, you can see, and I mean, it's easy to see that when we look over there, you see all the ridge lines or the strata lines. And then on the other side of that, where it kind of starts to smooth out. Same with uh, Sunrise Mountain over here. Same thing, like we're facing those strata lines and then it starts to smooth out on the right-hand side. So that could be something you start to map out. So again, so this is one of those instances where you can export all these different vector files at the same time because they all have their own unique characteristics. So I'll just now do Composer Manager, select that one, say show, it'll bring it up. I'm going to refresh it, and now I've got it. And I realize that it's probably a little bit too far, so I want to show more of that. So in order to make sure your province is more or less right in the center, you're probably going to want it to show up like that. So then you can just do SVG. I'll put this in my soils group. So physiography. And then the last part, then just choose that base image. Again, it could be a variety, so you can download multiple parts. Which one is a good example to show? So if we did this one, let's do this one. Oops. And then I'm just going to export this as an image. So I'll show you, I can probably do this one at a 300 DPI. Um, and it'll be just fine. Because this is an actual placed image, it's not a part of that plugin. Wait for it. That's the wrong one. That's probably would have. Yeah. So you can see just how high of a resolution that is. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so there's that one. Then I can do the same thing for these other ones and know that I'm going to get a good resolution as well. This, obviously, you do have to change your color settings in here, as well as the transparency. I don't know, what color do you think would be good? Maybe something crazy like that. Yeah, whatever. Again, I'll.
This is, are we going to, well, when the project is over, it's over, right? Or is this something continuous still? Like, we have to keep the same thing or something?
I mean, it would be good to like keep the information, right?
Well, right, but like, I feel like you're going to give us more insight later where it's so connected, you know?
Well, it is.
Right, and you put the posters together, but one looks not like pastel green. I don't think
Well, then, if you guys share that file, then it shouldn't be difficult to change your color settings, right? And so this would be height field for elevation. So you've got this one, so we'll open that one. We'll open the other one that we just created. And then I'll just place the, so I'll edit this one a little bit. It's kind of weird, obviously, with that blue. You can either just extend that blue or just delete it and replace it with something entirely different. If you use the magic wand tool and just have a very low tolerance, you can just select that color. It means it's ability to like pick up on the pixels. So if it's higher, it'll pick up a lot of ranges of blue versus the other way. So maybe, and then maybe this is just kind of a darker color, just so it doesn't kind of stick out. Fortunately, I don't know if there's a shaded relief for the North America, so you'll just have to live with that. You can use the aerial, I guess, to help bleed it together. And then I can do file, place linked, to find the other one. What's great is that they'll all just match up perfectly together. Oops, maybe it didn't like that one. No, it's there. What? That's weird. I don't know what that means. It's because it's so much that's being read right now. Let's try this. I close that one, close this, close this. Weird, okay. I'm just going to copy, do Control A to copy and paste it here. And I can just do the same thing with my magic wand tool to delete this extra pink. And same with this white. Now you can start to play with the blending modes. That's kind of cool if you just lighten it. What about screen? These ones work well because you're using very bright colors. Overlay and soft light, not so much because it just really doesn't like that part. So I would try and do something kind of like that. That's pretty cool. And then, so then you can just save this. I'm going to save as JPEG since it seems like my computer's struggling with some stuff. So base comp. And so I think for this, someone should probably be dedicated to, wow, dedicated to, let's just try some, to kind of drawing out this map. So come on. So what you can do with this, so I'll do layer, I'll create a new layer. Oh, so I like the Photoshop file more than a JPEG. That's interesting. So this is what I was saying before. When you bring in that SVG, it's also going to have a white background. So it's also going to get all grouped together. So if you just do Control Shift G a couple times to ungroup it all, you can then, after it processes all that, you can just delete that a couple times. For whatever, each layer has essentially a white background. So there we go. I think that's there. And so then you're going to want to, in order to select all the red, if you select one, then you just do your select similar objects up here. It'll select all the other red ones. I don't know, maybe try to find a common color. Another way you could do, kind of give it a fill. Maybe then it's got some opacity to it. And then you can label the different regions. But the thing I think you should also start to do is create a new layer. And then you want to start to indicate using the correct geo information. So this might take quite a bit of time, but I think it'd be pretty powerful if you were to just use the pen tool and give it like a rough kind of sketch of what that looks like. And so with that, then you can even draw some arrows that are So what's crazy with this? So like you can imagine how tedious this gets to like draw an arrow that's perpendicular to each one of those lines. Seems like a pain, right? So here's an even quicker way. So what you can do is change, so you can take one of these arrows and make it into a brush. And it can be a pattern brush. So that way it'll follow those parameters. So I'm gonna, let's actually draw it orthogonal. So we're gonna take this brush. And again, you can always change some of this stuff. I'm gonna change the scale. So that looks cool. So I'm gonna go up to my brush and I try to remember which one I do. It's either, I think it's actually art or no, I think it's pattern brush. It's actually not scatter because you get special settings for this. You can do it now to actually follow that, or let's make sure I find the right one. Might be the other one. I'm trying. So I might have to actually just rotate it. So I might have to actually have it vertical. Let's try it this way. Yeah, here we go. And so then you can, we do, but I kind of want it so it's not at the center. So in order for that to work, so here's like the trick. So so if I were to just, let's just do run this scenario. So you do pattern brush. Like Bruno said, you can change the, uh, maybe we do have to do it the other one. So we're going to do scatter brush. And so size, spacing, let's just hit OK. Right, so that's where it gets a little bit weird. So you kind of have to cheat some of this information. So let's delete this one real quick. So I'll show you what you have to do in order to get this to work. So I have pattern brush, but I can't actually change the spacing, unfortunately. Oh, wait, here it is. Sorry, Bruno. I knew it was somewhere there, right? So now you can change the spacing. Oops. So you can hit OK, but you'll see what happens is that it's kind of lined up in the middle now. So what you have to do is you take this, make a copy, and you remove its stroke. So it's 0. So it's still going to be this 2 object. And then it should work. It looks like it's. So now you want to copy this one because it's going to remove that. And then you're just going to paste it in front. There you go. And then obviously if you want to flip the direction, you can just. So it's not a whole lot of work. It's going to be a little tedious to map that out. So you might need kind of divide that out, but you can imagine all you have to do now is just, okay, I'm going to do one over here. Just copy, paste in front for that one. You can even do it rigid. That'll start to look pretty cool when we start to understand how these formations are being spread apart. Obviously, some are going the other direction, so you can see, looks like right here. maybe. So I would, let's delete this one. And then we can do, and then we'll duplicate this one. And then we'll just change this one to be the other direction. Oops. So now you start to show like how this becomes a very pretty productive. And then you can start to even label like valley, river, lake as being those kind of specific things that happen in between. I mean, maybe these are all have to be white. I don't know. So you can change that stroke if you need to change those colors. Um, you do hue shift, and now the brush will even change colors. So that can look pretty cool. It's not a whole lot of work. I mean, you can see like how streamlined that became. All I have to do is what I would do is just literally draw each one for the direction where you know it's going to the left. So I can do that, then just do Control C, Control F. Oops. Oops, let's double fix this one. Hue shift. So you got to change some of those settings. Yeah, you'll figure those out. Seem doable? Cool. So I think that's what you have to do there. And then obviously have someone working on your little cool transect. If I would even make sure to give, because there's several different provinces, right? Oops. So you probably want to give them their boundaries and then label. So Great Basin, Sonoran Basin, I think it was Mexican Plateau. So that all that information is going to be here. So yeah, Mexican Highland. So yeah, you guys good? Should be ready by